Google is a great tool. The problem is that it lies, at least some of the time. What I'd like to do in this video is show you how to use Google to get the right answer. It's a great tool, but you have to learn how to use it correctly or you'll walk away with the wrong answer. If you're not careful, Google will lie to you. If somebody wants to get the answer to a question, the best place on the internet is either Google or YouTube. YouTube's great for videos, Google is great for text, and most people go to Google. The problem is that once someone gets the answer on Google, they believe it, and many times that answer is wrong. Here's the fundamental problem with Google. Google doesn't know anything. All it does is it looks at websites and it compares words. It collects words. It looks for word associations. If it finds two words that go together, it assumes they mean something. But Google doesn't actually know what those words mean. Let me give you an example here. So I've done a search here for Christmas tree. And you see lots of pictures of Christmas trees. And you might think, well, geez, Google's pretty smart. It knows what a Christmas tree is. But in fact, it doesn't. All it knows is that there are millions of websites out there that put those two words together. And that means something. And they also know that those two words are associated with a bunch of different pictures. And these pictures all kind of look like the ones on the screen here. Now, if you Google the word Christmas tree, it assumes you want to buy a Christmas tree. So that's why we're seeing a list here of different places to buy Christmas trees. But it doesn't know what Christmas is. It doesn't even know what a tree is. It's using word association to bring these answers back to you. Now, in this case, the answers are quite correct. These are all Christmas trees. The reason is that 99.9% of the population that writes blogs also knows what a Christmas tree is, and they use the word correctly. So in that case, Google does bring back the right answer. Now, this problem is not unique to Google. All the search engines have this difficulty. And in fact, it's one of the biggest problems with AI. AI doesn't actually know things. It just puts words together. Let's do another search here. I'm going to type in Christmas tree and see what we get. You see that Google tries to help us because it knows that Christmas tree is a fairly generic term. And it tries to add more words to it. So if we go down here, we have Christmas tree water. Maybe that's what you really want to search for. Christmas tree drawing. Now in this case, we get a couple interesting results. This is Christmas tree water from Garden Myths. Now Garden Myths is my blog where I debunk various gardening myths. And Google knows that I'm on this computer and doing the search, so it's bringing back results that I might want. Here's an article I wrote a little while ago, Tricks to Make Your Christmas Tree Last Longer. Google has associated Christmas tree with these other words, and it's trying to help you figure out what your real question is. I'll put a link to my blog in the description below. Let's have a look at another example. Let's say you want to know whether the earth was flat. Now let's go back 600 years. This is a time when most people thought the earth was flat. And let's assume that back then we had bloggers and we had Google. All the bloggers are writing about flat earth, and Google goes out and looks at that information. In fact, what Google does, it actually sends out little robots, little electronic robots that read all these websites and look for words and word associations. If you did a Google 600 years ago, you would get back all kinds of results that tell you the earth is flat. That would be the most common answer that you get. Why? Because most of the people thought the earth was flat. What happens when we do that search today? Well, I've done that search for you here. I've asked the question, is the earth flat? And in this case, Google comes back with an answer. It's not even a website, it's an actual answer. It's so confident that this answer is right that it gives it to you. It says, no, the earth is roughly a sphere. If we look at the blog posts that it brought back, most of these blog posts talk about the fact that the earth is in fact a sphere, or in fact, a lot of them say it's round, which is actually incorrect. But they're not agreeing with the idea that it's flat, although they talk about flatness. So here's one. How do you know the earth is round? And the article goes ahead and discusses why we know it's round and how you can show that to yourself. But many of these articles also talk about flat earthers. Okay? You might not know this, but flat earthers is a group, a society that exists today, And these people strongly believe the earth is flat. They think that all this evidence of roundness or spherousness is a hoax, and the government is perpetuating that hoax. There's even conferences where hundreds of people attend to discuss how flat the earth is. But most of the returns that Google found say that the earth is round. They don't really believe that it's flat. Again, why do we get the right answer in this case? Well, we get the right answer because most of the bloggers believe that's the answer. Now I'd like to have a look at another search. This one's more controversial, and I'm going to show you the search several different ways and show you how you can fine-tune the search so that you get a more correct answer. So let's start by doing a simple search that many gardeners would actually enter. I've done a search here for mosquito repellent plants. It's going to get warm here in a couple months. The mosquitoes are going to be out, and gardeners will search for mosquito repellent plants because they've heard from other people that these things work, and they're going to want to get some of these. So what does Google send back to us? Well, right at the top here, it actually gives us a list of what these plants are. So you don't have to go and look through all these websites anymore. The answer is right there in front of you. Lemongrass, eucalyptus, sage, allium, geraniums, bee balms. Oh, and there's even 15 more. I have news for you. That's the wrong answer. Let's see what the bloggers are saying. Garden design, they come up a lot on these kind of searches. 12 mosquito repellent plants. So they have a list as well. And in fact, the list here probably looks a lot like this top list. That's where Google got it from. Then we come down here and we have discussion forums. So Google is bringing back a lot of these Reddit links. This is places where people are having discussions about which plants are best for repelling mosquitoes. The problem with these links is that the people who are doing the answering there are not experts. They're just any person who wants to go to Reddit and spend some time answering questions. You never know who's answering them and how reliable the information is. So these are useless. Ignore these completely. The same is true if you go to social media. Doesn't matter what it is. Facebook. Ask a question there. You'll get a wrong answer many times because the people answering it are not expert. The people answering it, in fact, a couple days earlier might have come to Google and asked Google, and Google says, yeah, here's this list of mosquito repellent plants. Then they go on social media and repeat that and repeat it over and over again. That's why some of these incorrect pieces of information are spread wildly throughout the gardening community. Then we have Home Depot. Well, of course, they're trying to sell plants, so they're going to call them mosquito repellent plants. This one was a bit of a surprise to me, WebMD. This is a medical website, and their answers are usually pretty good. But in this case, they're kind of wrong. They actually promote the idea of using these plants. Now, they do say that it's mostly the oils from these plants, but they're still promoting the plants themselves. Here's another Reddit, so we ignore those completely. Now here's some pictures, and this first one is the citronella plant. That's called the mosquito plant or the mosquito repellent plant. I've written a blog post on that too, and I'll put a link in the discussion below. That is the mosquito plant, but it's not a citronella plant. People have confused those two terms. Citronella is actually a grass. Looks nothing like this plant, but this is the plant that people sell in nurseries and hardware stores to get rid of your mosquitoes. By the way, they don't work. But as we scroll down here, almost every one of these sites is telling you which plants to get and which ones keep mosquitoes out. They're all wrong. Now, if you scroll down far enough, you might find one of these that's right. But the top ones, the answer is wrong. If we go back to the top here, this block right here is a complete lie, with one possible exception, eucalyptus. There actually is some scientific evidence that eucalyptus might work, but you need a whole grove of trees. And I've had at least one person reply to my comment and says, I have a grove of eucalyptus and they don't work. There is some scientific evidence for eucalyptus, but not for the others. They do not repel mosquitoes. This is a complete lie. So let's try the search a little differently. So here I have a search that sounds the same, but it's significantly different. This time we're going to ask the question, do plants repel mosquitoes? And when you ask it this way, Google will come back with a different set of answers, a different set of blogs for you to look at. The first one here is written by Consumer Reports, and they do research on these sort of things. And the answer here is, there's no solid evidence showing that plants will repel mosquitoes. In fact, this highlight is not my highlight. This highlight is done by Google. So on this search, Google is saying, oh, they don't work. On the previous search, Google is saying, oh, they do work, and here's the list of plants you should have. See, this gets back to this idea that Google doesn't actually understand any of this. It's just associating words. It finds phrases and sentences that it thinks matches your query, and then it presents the information. In fact, here, by highlighting this, it's contradicted itself. If we scroll down here, we find a couple other websites that also are suspicious of this. You know, do mosquito repelling plants really work? Well, they go on to say that there is some science for the oils of some of these plants, which is correct, but not the plants themselves. Here's this WebMD site again that actually promotes the use of plants. Then we have Reddit, and these discussions are all incorrect. Then we have the Old Farmer's Almanac. I can tell you from experience that at least 50% of what they say on their sites are wrong. This one is wrong, and so on. But because we asked the question a little differently, we're getting at least some sites that are correct and some that are wrong. Now, if you don't know the right answer here, you're still kind of confused because, you know, there's some big sites here like HGTV. They say they work. And yet there are some other sites here that are also big names like Consumer Reporting who say they don't work. So now you're really confused. What is the right answer? Well, there's one other step for you to do. Do this same search, but do it a different way. And I've done that here. What I've done is, here's the search, do plants repel mosquitoes? And I've added to the end of that the word cite, a colon, a dot, edu. What this says to Google is, only show me results from websites that end in edu. These are government sites, educational sites. They are more reliable for getting information. So now we have the coloradostate.edu. And they go through and they say, no, in fact, plants don't work. And here's another one, same thing. Again, if you go through this list, you'll find there's almost no one on this list that tells you the plants work because they know what the science is. Here's one that's highlighted. Research shows little scientific proof of effectiveness in repelling mosquitoes. In fact, this is specifically about the citronella plant. So if you want better information, add this to your searches, cite::edu. Now there's another way to get really accurate information. And you could simply Google for garden myths. And if you do that, my site will come up. And if you go there and ask these questions, you will get the right answer. I'd like to have a look at another query. This one is, do plants clean the air in your home? Now, 10 years ago when I started my Garden Myths blog, I asked this question, and every one of the blog posts said, yes, they clean the air in your home. As far as I know, Garden Myths is the first site to ever disagree with that statement. And I actually went and got the original research that everybody was quoting. It was a NASA study that is online, and actually read it. None of these other authors had ever read the study. They just referenced it. Well, it's pretty clear from the study that it didn't prove that plants work in the home. And in fact, since then, I've written several blog posts about it. I've kept an eye on it. I've looked at a lot of the research study that's out there. And in fact, it's pretty clear houseplants are not going to clean the air in your home. So now if we do this search, this is 10 years later, what we find is a mixture of answers. The first one here is from the American Lung Association, and they say the evidence does not show that they are an effective tool for reducing air pollution. And if you scroll down these answers, you'll find some of the people say, yes, they work. And then there are some people who say, no, they don't. It's quite amazing that over that 10-year period, we went from 0 people saying they don't work to about half, maybe 40% of the people now saying they don't work. you have to be very careful which sites you believe. And I think it's really important when you use Google to find things is to get to know these sites. This is the Grove Collaborative. I have no idea who they are. So if I read what they're writing, there's a very good chance I won't believe it. Now, if I go in here and have a look, one of the things I do is I've got this article and I'm wondering, okay, now, should I trust this? Well, it's written by Grove Collaborative. I have no idea who that is. It's not a person. So we don't know who this is. So this person doesn't have any references. It's not a university professor, for instance, that studies these sorts of things. We scroll down here, and one of the things I do is I look for links. Okay? Now, these are the links here. And these are links to explain what these pollutants actually are. Here's this NASA study I was talking about. So it says, the studies show that houseplants were able to cut down air pollution from VOCs in small airtight containers. That's actually correct. A very different environment from the large rooms of homes. That is also correct. The fact that these links are here to some sort of a study gives me some confidence that maybe this information is correct. Here's a more recent study done by the Drexel University. So that's one way you can tell if you should trust this site. Look for these links, open the links, make sure they actually go to scientific studies. So what happens when I click this? Well, this is a scientific study. It's published in the Journal of Exposure Science. There's real authors. They're real professors, they do real research, and the abstract is here for this study. Now, even if I don't want to read this study, and I understand why most people don't want to do that, at least it's here. And so you have some confidence that what the person is saying in the blog is correct. When this is missing, when you're reading through these blog posts and there are no links, but people say, oh, there's a study, and there's no link to that study, then don't trust it. That probably means there's no such study. Many times I've gone looking for that study and it just simply doesn't exist. They just make that up when they write the text. I'm going to show you one other way that you can use Google to find the right information. So if I open a new tab, I'm going to go to something called Google Scholar. This is a version of Google that looks at research papers. And I'm going to look for marigolds and nematode control. I want to know if companion planting works. Do marigolds actually control nematodes? And so this is a list of articles now. These are all published. And you can read through them, effects of selected marigold varieties on root knot nematodes. If you want to open these, you have to do a right click so you get a new tab. And here's another study. Now, the problem with these studies is they can be kind of difficult to read if you don't have a science background. But just read the abstract. That's the part at the top. And that gives you a summary of what this research is about. Now, I know most of you aren't going to go to this extent, but this is the best way to get an answer. In this case, marigolds do work for controlling root knot nematodes. But every study I've ever seen makes it very clear that the marigolds have to be grown first, then they're dug into the soil, and immediately you plant the crop. That's not what most gardeners do. Most gardeners plant the marigolds around the outside of their garden, and they're not working. But if it's done correctly and the right marigold is matched with the right type of nematode, it does work. I'll put a link to an article about that too in the description. So to summarize, don't get your information from most places online. These discussion groups are for the most part wrong. Now you can get to know certain people who you trust. You can also go to websites that you trust, and Garden Myths is one of those that you can trust. If I find a mistake on Garden Myths and you let me know about it, I correct it immediately. We also have a Facebook group called Garden Fundamentals, and that's full of people who will give you the correct information. I'll put a link to that in the description below. I also have a YouTube channel of the same name, and you can go there for more information. Now, if you'd like to learn more about plants, have a look at this video here. It's chapter 1 of my new book, Microbe Science for Gardeners. Happy Googling!